Hello again, and welcome back to another episode of the Casio Prizm channel, Seemathrun. Today we're going to be exploring the graph menu, which is graph menu number 5, icon number 5. I'll just go ahead and enter. If you've never used a graphing calculator, this is all going to be new, but I'm assuming you've already used a graphing calculator. I'm just going to show you some of the advantages of having color. So I'll just type in a linear equation here. It's in Y1. In Y2, this one is now red. You notice the color change. We'll put in a different equation for Y2. If you've ever used any kind of math software like MathType, works very similar to MathType, as you get different little templates depending on what you push. I pushed the fraction template to get a fraction. And I'm going to draw one more curve. Let's go with a basic x squared curve. I'm going to make that negative just so it opens down, just to add some variety here. Right now, you notice all the ones that are selected are highlighted. The equal signs are highlighted. I've got a blue graph, I've got a red graph, and I've got a green graph. I'm going to go ahead and hit draw. You notice all three of them did come out in the color that corresponded to the equation. If you want to do something like trace now in the full color, you see the equation is showing up in the color, same as the graph. You see the point that has the coordinates, and you see the coordinates on the bottom. If I toggle up, I see the next equation. Next equation is my negative x squared function. Graphing upside down, again, you see all the critical values. Toggle up again, there's my red. It shows up slightly different. If you've ever seen a graphing calculator that has a fraction built in, it's 1 fraction 2. So numerator, denominator, x plus 5. Last week we took a look at some of the functionality in the picture plotter. These functions are pretty similar. So if I go second gsolve, which is F5, I can now find the intersection of two graphs by just finding intersect. It says, okay, right now I'm choosing the yellow one. It's flipping yellow-blue, which is Y1. Yep, that one stays highlighted. Now it's flashing with the second equation, Y2. Those are the only two that intersect, so I'll select that. And it gives me the intersection point. It tells me what the two equations were. It gives me the graph, where I'm at. It gives me a horizontal and a vertical. It gives me the words. It gives me the answer. If I press execute, it plots the point right on the graph itself. A very powerful tool for showing all of the different parts. You put it all together here. You've got the equation, the graph, the vocabulary, along with the intersection itself. There is no intersection with the one on the bottom, so I'm not going to bother trying to find that one. But let's do some fun stuff. Let's change these into inequalities, because now that we have color, we can graph in full color inequality. So I'm going to change the type of graph it is. I press the F3 there, and I want to convert that first equation into a greater than equation. Now notice a couple of things. It changes the symbol to greater than. It changes the line to a dotted line because it knows that a greater than equation is not going to include the line. Change the type on the second kind, on this Y2. I'm going to convert that one. Let's go with a less than or equal to. So I'm going to convert that equation to a less than or equal to, so I don't have to retype anything. Again, I don't lose anything. And the third one, I'll just go ahead and delete that for now. Am I sure? I sure am. And I'm going to press F6 to draw. There's my first equation. There's my second one. Now currently what I've got turned on is I've got the intersection only showing. So I'm going to change the setup of this graph to decide I want to graph not my intersection, but I want to do the union of the two graphs so I can see both colors. So I'll go ahead and exit once I've selected that. I'll go ahead and redraw. Here comes my blue graph. Here comes my red graph. You notice the combination is a purple. So no longer do you have different hash marks or grayscale. That makes it tough to see. Now we can see it in full color. The other great thing, I don't know if you've ever used a Casio graphing calculator before, but it lets you graph in many different types. I've got the option to type an x equals graph, so if you ever have any linear programming problems. I have not lost my y1 and y2, those are just above. To avoid confusion, it just jumps down when it changes the type. I'm going to type in y minus 4. That'll give me a slanted graph. You know what? Let me change that to make it easier. Let's go, I'll go greater than 0. So I'm going to modify. I'm actually going to change this type here. I'm going to convert this. If I don't see it, I can just toggle over. I want to have an x is greater than. I'll get rid of that formula. I want to have an x is greater than, so I'm going to change the type of equation I'm looking at. I'm going to go with a x is greater than, which is an F1. X is greater than 0. I'm going to come in from the left side. I'm going to change this type, and I will say that x is also going to be constrained to be less than or equal to, let's go with a 4. So I've got 4 inequalities here. I'm going to graph all 4 of them. And now again, I don't have the intersection. I've got the union of all these. So I'm going to put all these colors all together at once. There's my greater than that. Here's my less than 4. Again, the colors and the hashing makes it so it's really nice to see. Still a little difficult to see, so if I just wanted to make it where I can see the intersection of all of these graphs, I'm going to change that by making that intersection in my setup. Hit exit. Go ahead and redraw that. Here's my first, my second, just the overlap, just the overlap, just the overlap. And there it is. All the overlap in one nice spot. Now again, if I wanted to do intersection, I could do the intersection between the two y graphs. You have to be a little careful when you do the x graphs because you actually don't find the intersection there, but I could actually calculate each one of the two equations at the different points. So if I want to know when x was 0 for each one of these, we did this last week. I want to calculate a y value. So my y value on that first equation, when x is 0. It gives me that. I press enter. That's going to lock it in. I'll do that again. So I'm going to find a g-solve. I want to calculate a y value. On which equation? I already found it on that one, so I want to find it on the red one. There's the red one blinking. When x is 0. So if I have an equation for linear programming, a series of equations, and I need to find those critical points to determine maximums and minimums, I can go ahead and plot those all on there, and there they are. My critical points are 0, 3, 0, 5, and 4, 7. We'll do one more quick example of the different kinds of graphs that we can do with inequalities and color here. I will delete some of these functions. I'll just go ahead and delete. I'll get rid of it. Delete the next one. I'll get rid of that. Get rid of one more. We'll delete. And I'll say yes. And this time I'm going to put in a inequality that is going to have more than one intersection point because I can find multiple intersection points. So I will delete that formula. I'm going to change my type back to a y, and I'm going to say y is less than or equal to. And I'll say, let's go something fancy. Let's go with the sine of x. I may have to change my window in a second, but that's okay. And the second one, let's go in y is 4. So right now y is less than, actually, you know what, it's not even going to get to 4. Let's go with 0.4. Because that sine curve was not going to go above 1. Yep, I'm going to have to change my graph window, but that's okay because that's an easy thing to do. Change my view window. I can change it to a trig window. You notice I just pressed the trig F2 and it changed that. So I'll just go ahead and draw. Here's my sine wave. It's an inequality. Here comes my y, less than 4. Again, it's just the overlap. I want to find all the intersection points. So I want to do a G-solve, which is second, or shift F5. I want to find the intersection, which again is an F5. There's one. If I like it, press execute, plots it. Go over to the next one. I'm just toggling over. There's no need to recalculate anything, no left and rights. It's just right where it is. Same thing happens with the concept of maximums and minimums. Find the maximum of that. Again, local maxes, all my local maxes that show up within the view window, within the domain will show up. Again, if I like it, I press execute to plot it. It gives me the point. It leaves the point up there. If I wanted to find all the intersections, you could do that. If you wanted to find the y-intercept, again, it's a single button push. It asks you which equation. You let it know which equation. It gives you the answer. If you like it, press execute. If you don't want to see it, you don't press execute. You don't save it. You don't see anything. So those are just some quick features of the graph window, showing you some of the advantages of having full color, using the Casio with a nice G-solve, which stands for graphically solving for different parts of the equation right on the screen. Again, this is the Casio Prizm channel. This is episode number 3. Thank you for joining me. Next week we'll take a look at some more advanced features, along with some dynamic graphing possibly, maybe some spreadsheets. The spreadsheets are fabulous in color. So stay tuned. Tell your friends.